Forget taking a knee, just turn it off. I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, that is the sentiment expressed by Brittney Griner, who was the 2019 WNBA MVP runner-up. She plays for the Phoenix Mercury, and she and one of her teammates have basically said that the league should stop, or the team should stop playing the national anthem before the Phoenix Mercury games, and until they decide to do so, that she's going to remain in the locker room. Apparently during last Saturday's game with the Phoenix Mercury and the LA Spark, I want to say, or Sparks, neither team was on the court during the playing of the anthem. Bill, it's just an entertainment event. We don't play the national anthem before we see a movie. We don't play the national anthem at the theater for plays or musicals or other kinds of entertainment events by and large. Why is it so necessary to do this during a sporting event?
Tradition.
Now, obviously, it probably goes as unsaid.
The serious issues of the day usually cause me to break out in 70-year-old show tunes from Broadway.
Well, but Brittney, I just want to clarify, she's doing this as a protest against a shooting of a woman by police officers, and then in the police brutality in general, of course.
Well, let me just get the snark out of the way, because the first thing I hear when I hear this is rising bile. It's nothing like a national protest led by somebody you've never heard of. But in any event, hey, my attitude on this is actually pretty simple, and as always, it's pretty much dictated by the principles that we try to elucidate here and occasionally get wrong. But the two principles that come into play here are, for me anyway, are patriotism and love of country, and also the right of businesses to pursue their businesses as long as they don't break any laws. So here's how I see the situation. If she wants to not show up for the national anthem, that's fine. If the entire team wants to not come out for the national anthem, that's fine. They're entitled to their free speech. They are on somebody else's dime, however. So if the people who are running the WNBA find that no one is watching or coming to their games because of this, then those people are certainly within their rights to fire the people that have basically lessened the value of their business. It's not destroying Brittney's freedom of speech. It just means she doesn't get to do it on TV in a uniform on private property. So that's the little issue. The bigger issue is why do we play the national anthem at sporting events, and why is that important? To me, it is critically important. And the reason it's critically important is because it's a large gathering of people, and the playing of the national anthem at a sporting event is often the only thing that reminds us that our countrymen are our countrymen. I said this a few times before, but really the political divide in this country is just so rancid now and getting worse every day, that if you live inside the frame of Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or whatever, you become convinced that people who disagree with you are just plain raw evil. But the nice thing about going to a sporting event is that it is no longer Republicans versus Democrats. Now it's Gators versus the Seminoles, or it's the Packers versus the Bears. And people who you wanted to strangle just an hour before coming into your seat, maybe 10 minutes before coming into your seat in the stadium, no longer people you want to strangle. Now they're people who are on your side. Now you want to strangle a completely different set of people, and they're sitting on the other side of the field. And I know that sounds flip, but it's not. It's really important.
So because the other examples I gave, like the theater or something, is not a competitive thing. It doesn't rouse passions where rivals feel antagonism toward each other. Therefore, it wouldn't be significant there, but it would be in the event of competitive sport.
It's also, a fair amount of it is also that it's outdoors. There is...
Well, not everything.
Seriously, it's not like the stadium becomes silent as a tomb at any given time, which is what you would expect in a movie theater or on a stage play. But it's got something to do with being outdoors. And when I say outdoors, I'm including things like these giant arenas, which are really just enclosed outdoors. It's a vast open space. It feels like a public space, even though it's not. When you go to a large a football game or a baseball game, you feel like you're in a large, open, public area, and that you're surrounded by other Americans. And I'm speaking for myself only here, but I know that when I'm saying I'm speaking for myself, I know most people who are certainly virtually all people who are watching this, and almost all people in the country feel the same way. When the national anthem plays, and I get a little teary-eyed, as I often do at events like this, it's not because I haven't heard the song before. It's because I realize the fundamental beauty of being surrounded by people who, in most cases, I wouldn't be surrounded by, nor would they be surrounded with people like me under any circumstances. And we're all out there, and we're all together under this flag and under this anthem. And there is there's something related to this. It's not the same thing, but it's part of the same sort of general experience. And that is, I think that on some level, the playing of the national anthem is connected to the sportsmanship and civility that we almost always see, which consists of at the end of the game, the players shake hands with the other team, or at a football game, which I'm much more familiar with. At the end of a game, both coaches run out to the middle of the field, shake each other's hands, tell them what a great job the other one did, and then go into their locker rooms fuming and cursing and wishing destruction upon them. But nevertheless, you can tell, and it's a good example, you can tell there are times when coaches particularly just despise each other, or one of them feels like they're a victim of bad calls or dirty pool or whatever. And you can see clearly that this is not like a joy for them to shake hands with the person that just whipped them. But they do it anyway. And they do it because it is an expectation of the fact that we are not serious about these divisions. This is about in the case of professional sports, it's not personal. And I feel like on some level that's connected to the playing of the national anthem.
But what you just said made me think of something that had not occurred to me previously, and that is that it sounds like you're making the argument to people like Brittney Griner and others that we need the standing together and singing of the national anthem now more than ever.
Yeah. And Brittney Griner has no business not standing for the national anthem. I'm not saying it's not a right, and I'm not saying I want to live in a world, or a country rather, where it is required by law to stand for the national anthem, but she has no business not standing for the national anthem. And
even
what
as
I mean
a form
by that
of
is very
protest
simple.
against what she believes is a corrupt government and an abusive government.
Well, but this is my point. The reason she needs to stand for the national anthem is because if she thinks that it is a corrupt government with an awful history, she is allowed to criticize that government. She's allowed to do whatever she wants to. I know this sounds paradoxical, but I think it's really true. The fact that she's not required to stand for the national anthem is as good a reason to stand for the national anthem as any other.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if America was the awful country that the left has made it out to be, if it was in fact nothing but a pit of racism and oppression and class warfare and so on, then the powerful would oppress the weak. Brittney would end up in prison, certainly fired, more likely in prison, and any kind of dissension from the party line of the state, which sounds like the world she's looking for, would land you in jail. The fact that she can thumb her nose at the flag, the paradox to me is, when you get down to the brass tacks of it, the paradox to me is, we'll take an example of the same phenomenon. The fact that you can burn the American flag in public is the reason why you shouldn't. It's because it's allowed. That's why you shouldn't do it.
I want to clarify, because you're going into an area that she specifically rejects. She said that her not being there out on the court for the national anthem has nothing to do with the flag. It has nothing to do with the military. In fact, her dad was in Vietnam. He was a law officer for 30 years. Before she ever dreamed of playing basketball, she wanted to be a cop. She said she has pride for her country, but this is specifically a protest against police brutality, and this is her way, her platform as a mere basketball player, of doing that.
Well, then I would give that certainly changes the equation for me anyway. everything I just said, you can apply to the left-wingers who feel that way, that hatred towards America and hatred towards the flag. That argument applies to them. Sounds like Brittney's a somewhat different case. And now we get to something that's even more interesting, I think, and certainly more topical and relevant. If indeed, I don't doubt her for a second, there's no reason to doubt what she says, then she has chosen a particularly awful form of protest, because what her decision in terms of protesting this injustice that she feels, that choice that she made, not only doesn't help her cause, but it puts people it puts people into trenches and ammos them up in opposition to her cause. And this is
essentially
this
it
is the
offends
tragedy
people who would
of
otherwise be
police
supportive because of their love for the anthem.
What's that?
You're saying that essentially she's alienating people who might otherwise be supportive of her cause.
Yes, exactly. And when you say, or when the headline says, NBA star, famous celebrity, whatever, refuses to stand for the national anthem because of police brutality, what we hear refuses to stand for the national anthem because they hate this country and everything about it. And so it would be in the interests of the, and by the way, this is why Black Lives Matter as an institution is not the same thing as concern for actual Black lives. Because if Black Lives Matter was about Black people being killed, they would address the fact that 96% of Black people are killed by other Black people. So it's not about that. It's about a political agenda. But the issue that she's protesting, and the issue so many other people are protesting, is in fact a genuine issue and needs to be addressed and is an appropriate thing to protest. But by doing it, by making it about the flag instead of about police brutality, she has essentially moved the spotlight off of the target.
She clearly says it's not about the flag. It's about
then
this
she's
anthem.
making a giant mistake, and she's making a mistake that she needs to understand. And when I say, Brittney, I'm speaking to everybody who's in that boat. You're making an enormous mistake by making this about America and the national anthem. You can say it's not about the flag or about the country, but that's how it looks. If it were me, I would pick some sort of gesture, maybe both hands crossed over your heart, whatever, to make it clear that this is not, you are not doing something that other people who love the country are doing. You are doing something specific to call a problem, attention to a problem, some sort of a gesture, some sort of something that is the visual equivalent of wearing a pink ribbon for breast cancer support. But to tie it into the anthem, as Colin Kaepernick did, was to immediately alienate not just half of the country, but really a much, much larger percentage of sports fans I would describe as relatively conservative. I would say that the average person who has NFL season tickets is more conservative than the people who are leading these protests in Antifa and Seattle and Portland and so on. And so they're making a gigantic mistake. And when they see that, and by the way, as you and I both know from having had personal conversations off camera about this, not only are they making a gigantic mistake, they are also causing like an immune system reaction, like an allergic reaction that actually reinforces the feedback loop. So what I mean by that is, if somebody like Brittney refuses to stand for the national anthem to protest police brutality, I don't know anybody who's in favor of police brutality. But when she doesn't stand for the anthem, I think that's an insult to the flag, an insult to the country, an insult to me, and an insult to the people who've died protecting it. So my attitude towards that person is now increased hostility instead of increased sympathy. That person recognizes the increased hostility and assumes that the increased hostility is because of the racism inherent in me, meaning that I don't like her because she's saying that police brutality should end. It's a bad muddying of the waters. And this is a profoundly interesting topic. And I wish we'd had this discussion quite a long time ago, because I think this is really, honestly, the nub of unraveling this issue is that the people protesting police brutality are people that have chosen a method of protest that to them was the most dramatic thing they could do, but is also the most counterproductive thing that they could do, and in fact strongly reinforces a negative reaction to what they think they're communicating. They think they're communicating an opposition to police brutality. But that's not how it comes across. And if there were some sort of gesture, and I mean, it's something as simple as this. I mean, really, I'm a little over the whole taking the knee thing. But honestly, seriously now, if you really wanted to protest police brutality, what I think you should do is I think you should rise for the national anthem, put your hand over your heart, and when the national anthem is over, then if you want to take a knee for 10 seconds, you are making a point. In fact, you're making 2 points. You're making a point that you're protesting police brutality, and by standing for the national anthem, you're also making the point that this isn't about the country, it isn't about the history, it's not about the flag, it's not about the people that died defending it, it's not about that. That would be infinitely more effective. And if you would rather make people angry than be effective, then we've got a job for you right here at BillWhittle.com. But if you really want to communicate that message, they're doing it exactly the wrong way.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're grateful for you taking the time to watch this program, to share it with your friends, and to become a member at BillWhittle.com, which you can do at that website by clicking the big green Become a Member button. You'll find interesting conversation among our members that you can only access if you are a member. You'll also be able to write for and read the member-written blog, which I think you'll thoroughly enjoy. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.